the 7 biggest mistakes I've ever made in my business. Mistake number 1. In my first year of business, treated it like a side hustle. And of course that's obvious because I had a day job and, all these other things going on. I didn't know I was going to have a successful coaching business. But I remember I made about $7,000 that year, which isn't bad for a side hustle for sure. It's not bad at all for a first year of business. But I had this dream, obviously, of leaving my day job, and it was like, there's no way this is going to cut it. And I see this happen time and time again to other coaches, is that they go out in their first year in business, first year and a half, whatever, and they actually think that what they do in their first year or that beginning phase is indicative of what they could create over time. And I fell into this trap too, thinking that like when I made $7,000 in my business, that was kind of what I would expect is if I kept going. I could see myself marginally improving and stuff like that, but I think it's a huge error to think that that first year is going to be indicative of what you can create over time. Because guess what? Historically, the first year in business is actually always going to be your lowest. Like historically, that is true for almost every entrepreneur. And so I think we sometimes need to give ourselves a little bit more grace, to recognize that, hey, I'm building something meaningful and it's not going to be built in just a year. I'm not going to make $1 million my first year, and I'm also not going to shame myself if I don't hit some crazy milestone like that. There's so much that goes into the first year in business, all the ways from getting your foundation set up to starting to build your audience, to figuring out what the hell you're talking about and how to use all your marketing channels. There's a lot going on, right? There is a lot going on. And so to think that that is the year that's going to prove to yourself that you can make it in an industry or make it as an entrepreneur is so asinine. And I remember how much your emotions get into it, how much your heart gets into it. You just want everything to be better and faster and you just want to go further. And so it can be really discouraging that first year, that first beginning period, whatever that is for you. If it's a year or 2 years, doesn't really matter. But we're talking about that beginner phase where truly it's going to be the hardest it's ever been. You don't really have an audience. And if you're building one, it's pretty slow going, right? It's not like you have this huge audience yet. You also don't know what you're doing. Every single thing is a learning curve and you're figuring it all out. And you're just starting to get consistent on how you show up and nurture your audience. A lot of people need a lot of nurturing until they feel like they trust you in order to want to work with you in like a personal development capacity. And so we think that someone is just going to stumble on our webpage and be like, that's the coach for me, I'm hiring them. And sure, that could happen every once in a while, but truly a lot of nurturing takes time. It takes time, and I've seen people I've met back in 2019 come back into my world in 2024 and become incredible clients, And if I didn't have that experience, if I didn't have that hindsight, of course it would be really discouraging to think that nothing I do matters, nothing's working, we get so caught up in stuff like that. And I was at this conference, the Kajabi conference of 2024 in LA in October. Brennan Burchard was there. I love Brennan Burchard. He is one of the best coaches in the world. He's like a high performance coach. He's coached some really top people in this industry. And he said it so clearly and so plainly that discouragement is like the biggest thing that's going to hold us back in this industry. Because you have a launch that flops, or you put an offer out there and nobody buys it, or you put a freebie out with like a ManyChat thing and you get like 2 people. Like it's all these things that whatever your expectations were up here, it doesn't pan out like that, right? It feels really discouraging. It feels like nothing's working. And I think if I were to go back to that version of myself and tell her one thing, it's that everything you do actually matters. Everything you do matters. Every single time you post a reel or a post or whatever, you're actually touching someone's life. Every single time you go live on Instagram, you are actually breaking past someone's limiting belief. Every single time you send an email to to your audience, one person was actually touched by that message. And so when we kind of start to see that every single thing we do matters, it starts to feel almost like an iceberg, where you have to have so much faith and so much trust that stuff is happening without you being able to see it. Stuff is happening without you getting the external result or the external validation that it worked. And so let's say you have this launch and you put all your effort in into it and you send a bunch of emails and you go live a few times on Instagram and nobody buys. Okay, right? That's hard. It's harsh. Like, you feel like, what the hell? I just tried so hard and like it didn't work. What the hell am I gonna do next time? If I tried this hard now, what am I gonna do next time, right? It's really discouraging. I remember crying. I remember tearing my hair out even, figuratively. Like, just on the ground of my bedroom floor, just feeling so discouraged like that. And so what we don't recognize that only people who are more seasoned and more experienced in this line of business can see is that launch that flopped, you actually seeded 5 people. You activated 5 people who really want to work with you but just weren't ready for it yet. And you don't know that because they're not telling you that. And yet, in another launch or another offer or another time down the line, those 5 people come back and they all want to work with you. And you will never know that it was the thing you did a year ago is that what actually made them say yes in their hearts. They just weren't ready in their minds yet. And so obviously it feels discouraging when we don't see evidence of that. But one, I promise you it's happening. And every other successful entrepreneur can vouch for this too. Every other successful entrepreneur, especially in the online, space, obviously, that we're talking about, online education and online coaching, service providing, all that kind of stuff, they can attest to the fact that they had the flop launches. They had 0 people sign up. They had crickets when they, announced something or went live or whatever. Like, all of that is the path to greatness. All of that is really, really normal. And in a way, thank God, because when you're first starting out, like, do you really need 1,000,000 people watching your Instagram live? Like, isn't it actually better that we start small and we kind of cut our teeth at a level where not that many people are paying attention yet? And when I first launched a program, I had 2 people join. And at that time, I don't know what I read. I read something that like 2% of your audience is supposed to join when you have like an offer. And at that point, that would have been like 20 people for me. So this whole time I'm like, oh my gosh, I want 20 people to join, 20 people to join. 2 people joined. Now, first of all, the fact that even 2 people joined is a miracle. Like, I don't know what I was doing. Like, I was such a newbie. I can't believe even 2 people joined now. But back then, I thought of it as discouraging. I thought of it as a fail. I thought of it as like, wow, well, 20 people didn't join, so I must suck at this. So one, it sucks that we frame things like that. But also, maybe I wasn't ready for 20 people to join back then. Maybe I needed 2 people to join so I can iron out the kinks and actually grow in my leadership and in my coaching before I ever served 20 people. And so what if sometimes the universe or God is actually giving us what we can handle, even if that's not what we say we want, because it's going to grow us in ways that we can't even understand. And there's this thing called the Oprah effect, where most businesses, if they got on Oprah and they were able to share their service or their widget or whatever, their product or service with the world, their business would implode the next day. Why? Because the demand it would create would actually not be sustainable for them. Their business isn't set up for it. The systems aren't set up. The back end isn't set up. They can't handle that many customers or that many clients. And so for so many of us, we just wish and pray and hope for that one opportunity. Like, when will I ever get featured on this huge thing and get all these clients pouring in? Or, you know what I mean? It's like that magic bullet that we want in our business. But what if it's like, what if the universe is actually giving us what we can handle and we just don't know it? And that we're meant to cut our teeth and actually grow ourselves before we're able to handle more demand. And there's another incredible leader named James Wedmore who has this other saying that your business will grow at the level of problems you can handle. So for example, if you can't handle the fact that someone defaults on their payment, like it stresses you out for 2 days and you're like, oh, what are we gonna do? I mean, do you think $1 million business has that happen to them? Do you think in $1 million business things like that aren't happening? Right? So it's like, we grow at the pace that our business is supposed to grow based on our own personal development. And sometimes we aren't going to have a business that grows to millions of dollars because we're not at the level to be able to handle that yet. And that's okay. And I've had coaches tell me that too, and I want to grow like exponentially, you know what I mean? Obviously, I get help doing that, and there's so much amazing belief in that possibility. But like sometimes we have to have that trust and that faith that things are actually growing at the pace that they're meant to based on what I'm actually able to handle and how I'm growing and evolving in that way too. And so I really think that if we can change discouragement into faith, we're actually stepping up as leaders. Because, I know this podcast can, be reaching all kinds of people who are interested in the alcohol-free or sober-curious lifestyle. And we can have all different kinds of business models out there. But, when I'm looking at coaches specifically, a coach is a leader. A coach is someone who can help their clients completely reframe their thoughts so that they can achieve their goals and their dreams. And if we can't do that on ourselves, and obviously it's not easy, right? It's super not easy when this stuff is happening to you, but that's just a sign that we actually do need to grow in our own leadership. And I think leadership of being the person who's willing to get back up again when things fail, being the person who's not embarrassed when only one or two people show up on a call, being the type of person who can have a flopped launch or have no one sign up and still move and lead, being the kind of person who takes action and acts as if their business is making all the money and all the sales and all the impact, as if we already acted like that from the get-go, we would actually show up and change the lives that we were meant to change, right? Versus when we're in that energy of discouragement, we don't really take action. We don't really take those big moves. So I think I talked about this mistake the most because it's so important to me, is that one, when we think that our first year in business is indicative of what we can create over time, is such a huge flaw. Not only because we're new, not only because we're basically getting our feet wet, we're just getting our foundation set up, we're just getting the hang of marketing, we're just starting to build an audience, but also our growth as an entrepreneur is at the lowest level it's ever been. And so you will grow so much, and your business has the capacity to change so many lives. Your business has the capacity to help so many people. Your business has the capacity to make you so much money. It can be your ticket out of a 9-to-5 job. You can retire your husband one day. You can speak on stages, all these beautiful things. It does have the potential to do that, but not if you get so discouraged at the beginning that you just give up, obviously, right? And so for anyone who's feeling that, sometimes I need to give myself this pep talk too, because I get discouraged still. I get discouraged all the time. I need to remember, the bigger thing I'm growing. And we don't just launch a business for 1 or 2 years hoping it's going to make us $1 million so we can quit. We're doing this because we're passionate about it. Hopefully this is our career for the rest of our lives, right? What's the rush sometimes in hoping and praying that everything you do hits it out of the park the very first go around? Maybe sometimes it's a lesson we do need to learn about how to deal even with discouragement so that we can help our clients better, right? Okay, the second mistake I made, I see a lot of clients making as well, is pricing too low. So a lot of times we see these huge companies that have a lot of economies of scale price something really, really low, but you're not actually seeing the back end of their business. You think that you, to compete, have to price yourself super, super low in order to get clients. And honestly, the opposite is true. So a huge business that has those economies of scale, like a Walmart or another coaching company that's just really big, what you're not seeing is they might have a low ticket offer, but they're actually ascending people to the next level that is much more high ticket, and it's just not visible. So they're actually making way more money than you think on these high ticket offers, and what you see is the pricing on the forefront isn't even close to actually what they charge in other areas, right? And so what the mistake I see people making is they copy those other people's prices and they price themselves super low. And then they find it hard to get clients when you're super low price, sometimes that's an actual giveaway to a client that you're not going to make that much of a transformation in that person's life. I know everyone's always looking for a deal, but sometimes you don't want a deal. You know what I mean? There's this incredible teacher from Australia who talks about do you want to be Tiffany's? If you're a diamond store, do you want to be Tiffany's or do you want to be Natural Gems Bargain Mart? You know what I mean? And so when we price ourselves too low and we don't have a strategy to actually ascend people up to the next level, that can be a huge mistake, and a huge mistake that I made in my business. Now, it's really normal, depends on what stage you are, to obviously start wherever you can. So I'm not saying if you're a total new business owner to price super, super high, because you're probably not going to have the confidence to be able to ask for that price. But once you do get your feet wet and you do work with a handful of clients, it might be time to position into premium pricing and to already claim yourself as a thought leader and to start making moves in that way. Another big mistake that I did myself and that I see a lot of people do is letting clients go. So they just kind of come in for one thing, you work with them for 3 months, and then it's bye, I'll never see you again. And when I first started, this is what I did because I didn't have anything else. testimonials to like give them or offer them, and I didn't even really like offer people continuation packages for the most part. And so the thing is like once a buyer is a buyer, that already vets them. That already like sets them apart. And it actually, most businesses will find that 80% of their revenue comes from existing clients. So even if you're newer in business, what you want to start really thinking of is an ascension plan where you can actually continue to make offers to people after they do the first thing. And so maybe, for example, for a new coach, that could look like, okay, I have one-on-one coaching, and then I'm going to go do this retreat in Costa Rica next year, and I'm going to invite my one-on-one clients to go to that retreat. That's something I did. And, I didn't have the retreat right away, but obviously I went back to those clients when I did put a retreat together. You might also think of it as like, what is the next level after they achieve this one goal or this one transformation? What is the next level that you're going to want to work on them with? So for example, I worked with a client who is into all things hormone balancing and biohacking. So kind of depending on the order of things, she's also an alcohol-free coach. She could help someone go alcohol-free first and then really help them balance their hormones second. Or vice versa, right? Maybe she helps someone balance their hormones first and then change their alcohol relationship with alcohol second. Probably the other way around, right? Because you probably want to remove that toxin before you even start like really honing in on the refinement. But it's like there's more than just the one transformation. There's more steps that can be had. And that's definitely true in my business where I started, I start first. If you're really just starting, you first change your relationship with alcohol. You lose your desire for it. So it's like not even taking up space in your mind. Then you find your bigger purpose and you live into that and you really go after the passion projects and the dreams you have on your heart. Then if you're like walking in my path, this isn't everyone's path, but if you're walking in this like euphoric path, then you become certified as a coach so you can help more people and really make your passion your paycheck. And then you move into business, like masterminding, either in the introductory one that we have in the certification program or into my Thought Leadership Mastermind. So it's like in my niche of helping really ambitious women who know they have a big purpose in this planet, even if that's just a subconscious feeling, I help them ditch alcohol, I help them become entrepreneurs, and I help them really become those thought leaders that they're meant to be. And sometimes it's easier for me to see it the other way around. Like, this is the end goal of where you're going to get to in life. That's my ideal client, and I'm just going like reverse engineering the steps with you. You know what I mean? And I think that that's what's been different about my business model versus other like sober brands and stuff like that, is that that's always been the point is, like if you want to just ditch alcohol and not have anything in your life change other than that, you don't want to change your limiting beliefs, you don't want to find that deeper purpose, you don't want to like help people, then my brand probably isn't for you, and that's totally okay. There's probably a better fit out there. So that's what's like an ascension can be so helpful for. The next huge mistake that I made is not being a thought leader, not positioning myself as a thought leader. And I probably was in business for about 2 years before I really got onto this concept. And I go way deep into it into my last episode of like what a thought leader is. So please go back and check out that episode. But basically, thought leadership, positioning, and marketing is the thing that skyrockets a business to the next level. There's people who just like smash it like out of the gate. They've only been around for like 3 or 4 years, and you're like, where did you come from? And the reason why they hypercharge their business success so much faster than someone who has been doing this for like 10 years and like really has the same level of growth every year is because they position themselves as a thought leader. And it doesn't mean necessarily your audience size or anything like that. It is literally the positioning of yourself. Go back to last week's episode because I don't want to repeat everything I said, but basically you have a body of work, you're an authority in your field, you get media, you're literally seen as a leader in your industry, you're disruptive, you're innovative, right? You speak on stages perhaps, you write books perhaps, but it's like someone who's so much bigger than someone who just has like an Instagram account. You know what I mean, right? And so that is a huge, huge thing that I didn't step into until maybe my second year in business or third year even. And that is the hugest difference. So that was a really big mistake I made. It's just thinking I'm some ordinary coach. I think also the next mistake I made is trying to like mimic and model what other people were doing, especially in my first year in business. And this is kind of hard because the first year you don't really know enough about what you're really going to do that you don't know how to articulate it. And I find this happens all the time that when I'm like launching a new program, it's hard to talk about it at first because it's so intangible. You don't really know what it's going to be. But then the more you practice articulating it, the more that you launch it and write about it, it actually comes together as something. So, I see a lot of coaches trying to copy people like This Naked Mind or other like leaders out there, and it totally falls flat because you are not This Naked Mind. You are not me. You are not this other person. The only way you're going to grow your business is if you have messaging that's completely authentic to you, completely authentic to your message, your story, your personality. And so even though like a lot of times we are like, okay, let's just mimic what someone else did to get to success. First of all, we have no idea what actually happened behind closed doors for them to get to that level. And two, it kind of falls flat, the energy, when you're just repeating someone else's words or someone else's tone and you're trying it for your audience. So I think it's really important to start becoming way more dialed in on what makes you unique and stand out in the marketplace. The next mistake I see that I also made is being afraid of selling. And I think this really comes from this concept that when you are a personal brand, when you are like a public figure, whether you think of yourself as that way or not, and you have like an Instagram and you share advice on things around personal development or going alcohol free or health or wellness or business or whatnot, we think of ourselves so much as inspirers that like who dare us to sell, right? Like I'm supposed to just give free advice all the time. And so I think we have like this skewed relationship with selling and not seeing that selling is actually the way someone gets a transformation. Like someone's life probably won't be changed because I posted on Instagram, right? Like that one post that they saw might open up a new perspective in their mind, but it's not the thing that's going to give them, a year's worth of changes in their life. Like we actually have to be in containers with people and put our investments in to like make those things a priority. You know what I mean? And I think when we're scared of selling to our audience, we're actually holding back from the change and the transformation that they deserve. And that we have to learn to like become way more comfortable with our relationship with sales and really see it as a form of love. And this is something I cover a lot in my Palm Springs retreat for the certification program. Because if you see an act of selling as an act of service, when you see it as love, as for the past version of you, when you think of the things that have changed your life, do you not ever think, thank God I was sold to? Like for me to change my relationship with alcohol compared to the cubicle and the happy hours and like waking up not feeling good and the shame I felt, thank God I was sold to so I could live in this alternate reality for my life. Thank God I was sold into the business programs that helped me write books and helped me scale my income and helped me position myself as a leader in my field. Like thank God for those things that have made such a huge transformation in my life. And when we have that like icky relationship with sales, it kind of can come across in our energy and we feel like we're bothering people. But truly thought leaders get to the next level with that. They truly want to help as many people as possible and they make offers that they know is going to help their audience. And then the last thing that was a big mistake I made in my business, and another thing that I see is pretty common in this industry, is not getting help. And I can go into team and all the kind of help you can get with like systems and that, but that's not actually what I mean today. Like what I mean is like, I don't know any entrepreneur who's at the top of their game who's not in a business mastermind or doing business coaching, if not both. I don't know anyone, right? Like that is such a huge part of getting to the next level of one, like when we're talking about a business mastermind, you actually surround yourself with other leaders who are going to get you opportunities and refer you and just expand what opportunities are available to you and how you're known in the world. So that alone is like priceless. But when you're also in a mastermind with a leader who's accomplished most of the things that you want to accomplish, you have a shortcut. Like you're not doing things the hard way anymore. And in my first year in business, I made that $7,000, right? I almost basically had no help at all. Like I didn't lean into mentorship whatsoever. So not leaning into mentorship is like where I capped myself at a $7K a year and I had a little side hustle, right? In the next year, when I really doubled down on mentorship, I joined 2 masterminds and another group coaching program, and I hired a coach. 14x. 14x that 7K income and made my first 6-figure year. It was the difference maker. Now, I don't like the kind of energy where you're looking for like some coach or some mastermind to save you. It's not going to work like that where you just join something and all of a sudden, like it's going to lead to that work. But it also is that sense of identity change that when you're someone who invests in something, that you know is going to take you to the next level, when it's kind of a stretch for you, where you have these immersive experiences that might be included in it too, that is just going to change your worthiness game. It's going to change how you show up in your power and authority. It does change your identity. It does change how you see yourself. I remember the first time I flew anywhere for my business, what a huge difference that made for my self-concept of how successful I thought I could be in a business. And now it's like I continue feeding into that momentum, and I'm honestly personally in 3 masterminds for 2025 and have doubled down on a coach for a whole year. So I'm all in for mentorship for 2025. And if you're someone who's like, okay, I know that this idea of mentorship is like the key for me to get to my next level in business, I think that you are going to be so primed for our Thought Leader Mastermind. Because this is not an ordinary mastermind where we just teach you, really basic concepts like, do this for the algorithm or whatnot. This is like a whole other level of thinking. It's a whole other level of thinking of like, how can I live my life so big and create so many stories that I am magnetizing my ideal clients to me? And by that, it means really claiming your identity as a thought leader. When you think of thought leaders, you think of people like Brene Brown. You think of people who speak on stages. You think of people who write a book. You think of people who are truly leaders in their fields. And that's the kind of people who never run out of clients or like demand, because that level of positioning just makes people want to really be in your proximity and really want to be able to work with you. I think of even like a service provider, for example. Like, I read this really incredible book called Breasts. And it's all about how to prevent breast cancer. And this woman is a breast cancer surgeon or a breast cancer doctor. I might not be saying it right, but she, you could work for a hospital like Kaiser, and you could do your cancer screenings and do your surgeries and stuff like that. And no one would ever really know of you except for the people who go to that hospital and get helped by you. And that's like great and that's cool. But this author really made a huge difference in her career, where she wrote the industry-breaking book on how to prevent breast cancer. She is now a celebrity doctor. She is now commanding clients from all over the nation for people who want to see her specifically on their cases and get her treatment and stuff like that. So that is like the difference between someone who just operates as a coach or a service provider in their small little like region and area versus a thought leader who literally commands that level of authority, that level of respect. And obviously it's a positioning. You don't have to wait until you get some big opportunity to start acting like that. It's a positioning where you're already seeking out stages you can be on, even if it's stages with your peers. Like, you can create your own stages. That's what I did in my first or second year in business. That really made the difference. You can put your body of work out there. You can be someone who writes books. You can get on so many podcasts that people start hearing of you in all these different places. And you can live such a big life that when you travel to Paris and you're like living this life of freedom and empowerment, other people are kind of like, oh my God, I want what she has. And sometimes it's those intangibles where we don't even know what it is that we want exactly, where a client is just like, that's the person I want to work with because she's living the life I want. Even if you don't teach people how to travel, for example, they watch you go to somewhere like Paris for your business, and they want to be that type of woman who takes that level of ownership and that level of power and authority over her life. Even if you're doing something like wellness coaching and it seems like it doesn't actually correlate or make sense. We are inspired by people who make moves and are powerful and claim their authority. And it doesn't mean you have to have all the confidence in the world to show up that way. It's literally like little changes that you can make in positioning and marketing that make all the difference. So that is the incredible experience that we are putting together for the Thought Leader Mastermind 2025. It starts in mid-January. However, applications are open now in December because we're going to fill the class in December. So if you are interested in learning from me on how you write a book, how you get on stages, how you get into the media, how you position yourself as a thought leader, how you disrupt your industry and be a true innovator, how you create your own methodology, how you magnetize so many clients, so much income, so many opportunities your way, that is the experience that we are creating together for 2025. You can either go into the link below, read a little bit more about the program, submit an application because we are vetting who joins to make sure you're at the right level. And if you're not at the right level, no problem. We'll just point you to another direction or another program that might be more fitting for you. I love to like read over your applications and learn more about you, so please do submit. Like, it won't hurt at all. If you're a previous client, you can skip that step. Just DM me or message me, and I will get you like a skip the line kind of thing. So you're not gonna have to apply because I already know you and love you. And you also get a discount. So do DM me if you're a previous client. And the experience we're gonna have in Paris is literally going to be life changing. Like, I am getting so excited about what we're planning in this mastermind and the guest speakers we have lined up, and like we have a hypno breathwork session lined up that's gonna completely rewire how you magnetize money into your life. It is gonna be phenomenal. But I suggest that if you love to travel, you join this mastermind because you also get to get your Europe trip expensed. So when you travel for business, when you are, flying somewhere for business, your flight, your lodging, all of that is a business expense. And so you can tack on a whole other European like trip to it, right? You can go on to go to Italy or Greece or something, and your flights and all that kind of stuff is still going to be expensed. So it's actually a really savvy move as a business owner. Plus, who doesn't want to meet up in Paris and have their time of their life with other alcohol-free, sober-curious entrepreneurs as we're taking on and becoming thought leaders in our fields? So do be sure, if you're interested, to check out the link below. Send me a DM on Instagram. I hope these mistakes that I went through myself can be illuminating for you and where you're going in your next phase of life and business. Because I just think it's so powerful that we really do have these transformations that we went through for a reason. And we are meant to share them with as many people as possible. And when we get stuck in these mistakes, oftentimes that is like a block that prevents us from really making the impact we're made to make in the world. And so maybe just correcting some of this kind of stuff can help you really fulfill that destiny that you know you have, that you're meant to impact a lot of lives on this planet. Because what else is the purpose of being alive? So I hope to meet you there. If you're not a coach yet and you're like really vibing and interested in this conversation, be sure to get on the waitlist for the next Empower Day of Coach certification as well. And we've got lots of different opportunities for you coming. I can't wait to tell you a little bit more about what I'm planning for 2025 and closing up this year and kind of reflecting and all that kind of good stuff. So stay tuned.